What we do here is go back.
How's it going, everyone, and welcome to episode 42 of the Lost Media podcast. Today we're talking about the Eric Stoltz version of Back to the Future, something that has amazed me since I found out it existed. If you guys don't know Back to the Future, just like all the other fanboys online, it's my favorite movie. I saw it for the first time when I was about 4 years old. I think it was the babysitter that came over with a special VHS screener only version of Back to the Future that they give out to video stores to get them to have a look at movies to see if they want to actually try and distribute that movie in their video store. And it had a different cover to any other Back to the Future cover I've ever seen. It was just Marty in a black studio with a spotlight down on him. That's all it was, and I've never found it since. That's a piece of lost media of Back to the Future that is completely unrelated to what we're talking about today. I will talk about that later in the episode because I just remembered it. This is a podcast, by the way, guys, in case you already haven't noticed how scuffed this is. But Back to the Future has a version with a different actor playing Marty and a different actor playing Jennifer. And it was filmed over 6 weeks before the production of the actual Back to the Future with Michael J. Fox. Well, guys, in case you don't know, they used a lot of footage from that original 6 weeks of filming for the actual Back to the Future. And the way they edited the movie together without people noticing is incredible. It's amazing. Because as you know, when you're working on a film, lighting changes. There's bound to be all sorts of changes in scenery, lighting on the set. And it's incredible. It is actually incredible how they were able to resurrect Back to the Future and make it the most beloved and most iconic movie ever. But it probably wouldn't have been the case if the Eric Stoltz version was used. 6 weeks into recording, they were filming the scene where Marty goes back in time, and they kind of just gave Eric Stoltz the flick late at night on set. And he was not a dickhead, but he just wasn't a fit for Marty. When he was on set, he demanded everyone called him Marty instead of Eric. If anyone called him Eric, he'd correct them and say, no, I'm in character, I'm Marty. And he stayed in character the entire time on set. For some film roles, this is a very good idea, like the Joker in The Dark Knight with Heath Ledger. He did a really good job with that in terms of, being in character and not being a jerk to his co-stars. But Eric Stoltz was kind of just pushing it too far. The guy who played Biff, Thomas F. Wilson, was just being pushed a lot on his collarbone, being pushed back for a lot of takes. And in between takes, he was like, look, Eric, Marty, could you please not, push me that hard? I know it's a movie and we're trying to get in character, but it's a pretend, it's not real. You don't have to push me and bruise me, because this seriously hurts. They do another take, pushes him even harder. He goes back to the next take, goes, look, Marty, mate, you're gonna break my collarbone if you keep doing this. My collarbone is going to shatter if you keep poking me this hard in the chest. We're just making a movie here. I really want to get along with you. I want to do this properly. I know you're trying to be serious and all and make this proper, but look, this hurts. This hurts a lot. Please try not to do this. They do another take. Eric pushes him even harder again. And then the next take, Thomas F. Wilson goes, look, man, in a couple of nights' time, I grab you out of the car and nudge you. And you better know that when we film that scene, I'm going to push you really freaking hard. And it got to the point where Thomas F. Wilson in interviews has said if they filmed that scene or if they filmed any more days with him, there's a chance he could have punched this guy's lights out. Because and Thomas F. Wilson's not actually like the character Biff in Back to the Future. He's not the violent type. If you've ever seen interviews with him, he's a very happy-go-lucky, nice dude. So he brought out the Biff in Biff. And if anything, it's probably a good thing because it probably made the character of Biff even, more I mean, charged up for that cafeteria scene because he just got bad memories when he was filming that with Michael J. Fox the second time around, and he was even more angrier and, in character for that. So Eric Stoltz, if you really think about it, guys, and this is almost proven, he set up the tone for the movie to become brilliant the second time around filming it, because the movie is about this weird guy going back in time. No one, he's dressed in weird clothes. He stands out, and Marty McFly was replacing Eric Stoltz as this guy who stood out, who was the replacement boy, who was completely, he wasn't in that original shoot with all the other actors. So it just got the characters in, they got them all in character perfectly. Another aspect to this is Michael J. Fox was filming Family Ties in the daytime and Back to the Future in the nighttime for 28 days straight, and on weekends Back to the Future in the daytime for one of the days on weekends. So not really 28 days straight. I think he got 1 day off a week. He had 5 hours of sleep at night, maximum. Ridiculous schedule. Absolutely ridiculous schedule. Very, very bad. Very, very bad for a person. It's crazy. So they had to, originally they tried to obviously get Michael J. Fox, and then one of the producers, or one of the heads of the studio, went with Eric Stoltz because he liked his performance in Mask. But the director, Robert Zemeckis, his first pick was Michael J. Fox, and then his second and third and fourth picks were completely different people. None of them were Eric Stoltz. So he was just like, oh, we'll see how we go. Those two butted heads, constant times on set. Eric Stoltz believed that the Marty character should be a bit more serious and shouldn't be this bumbling guy. There's one notable part from the movie when they were shooting, when Robert Zemeckis directed Eric Stoltz, hey, you just got to kind of trip over this sidewalk and just like act all dazed and confused that you're back in the past and you just don't know where you're going and you can't believe you're here. And Eric Stoltz is like, Marty shouldn't be all like bumbly. He should just be walking back normally. Completely didn't get into the mood of the character the right way and wasn't really listening to the direction that well. Look, it's all up for interpretation. But one of the final things, I'm going to try and remember a lot more things to do with the Eric Stoltz performance. There's a scene where he's filming his reaction to seeing his dad for the first time when he's like in the past, and he looks up at the ceiling. If you don't remember from the movie, Michael J. Fox is looking at Crispin Glover. He's looking up into space. There is a lot of dead footage, I would be guessing, that is just unusable for this to be a proper movie and for the performance to work in the scope of what they were going for. And it would have made this a bit of a forgotten flop, in my opinion. I just don't think he was well suited to that. They wanted a lot of laughs. They wanted a lot of perfect comedic timing and a mix of seriousness. And my thoughts about Back to the Future is Marty McFly is pretty serious. Michael J. Fox gives a pretty serious performance, but he mixes it in perfectly with the comedy of, oh my God, my parents, oh my God, my mum is trying to get with me in the car. All sorts of shit. He does it perfectly, whereas Eric Stoltz couldn't bring in the comedy. He could just only be serious the whole time. They nearly finished the entire movie, guys. They nearly finished the entire movie. And a side note, when you're watching Back to the Future, Thomas F. Wilson has stated in interviews again that is Eric Stoltz's arm and the side of his head punching him in the Cafe 80s scene. And the editors and the people who assembled the film are like, no, there's no way. Like, we didn't do it. And Thomas F. Wilson's like, there is no chance we filmed that shot with Michael J. Fox. That shot was not filmed again. That is Eric Stoltz's arm punching me. He knows for a fact because he was there. The editors, of course, go, no, hush, we're covering this up, because they don't want a lawsuit from, they don't want any more lawsuits. That's a whole nother rabbit hole I want to make in an extra video associated with Back to the Future. What happened to the footage? Well, they thought about deleting the Eric Stoltz footage. They thought about scrapping it and burning it, but they decided not to. They thought, well, for anniversaries, if this thing is successful, maybe this will become relevant one day if we use little bits and pieces of the making of. So they kept the entire film of Eric Stoltz. For reference, guys, they nearly finished the entire movie. There's about 3 or 4 scenes that weren't filmed. There's the back in time scene where he goes back and finds out what the DeLorean is, which is at the start of the movie. And then there's the scene where he's in the car and Biff pulls him out of the car and says, "You caused $300 of damage to my car. Now I'm going to take it out of your ass." And they put him in the trunk. That was never filmed with Eric Stoltz. And there's, I think, 2 other scenes, maybe. You guys can correct me if you know this for sure in the comments. I think there's 2 other scenes that weren't filmed. That is how much of the movie was filmed with Eric Stoltz. It's insane. However, Robert Zemeckis favored shots of Christopher Lloyd and just all the supporting cast in the last 3 days of shooting with Eric because he knew that he was going to sack him from the project. So, which is a bit rough, but better to do that than make a movie with someone who isn't a fit for the role. Yeah, he was just I feel bad for Eric Stoltz, but at the same time, I think this is a piece of cinema history now. Back to the Future is one of the most successful film franchises. It's one of the most successful films of all time. I think release the movie with Eric Stoltz. Release the full Back to the Future with Eric. That would be insane to watch. I think it would be insanely boring, personally, because we are so used to how engaging and how great the original Back to the Future is. I don't think I've seen a piece of media more times than Back to the Future, and every time I rewatch it, up until the end scene, I don't really watch the end scene because it kind of drags on a bit for a movie you're trying to rewatch. If you see that 3 or 4 times, you've seen enough of it. But all the scenes up until that final clock tower scene, it feels like the first time I'm watching it. I've seen the movie probably 50 times, and even when I watch it all over again, from start to the clock tower scene after the dance, it still feels like this movie's not even old yet. And I'm someone who can't watch a movie more than 5 times, so that's saying something. Since I was a little kid, it was my favorite movie. Eric Stoltz, though, I didn't know that he was the original Marty, and they did 6 weeks of filming until I think 5 or 6 years ago when I started researching, or maybe a little bit more. But it blew my mind. And if you want me to be honest, it kind of fucks with the movie for me. So there are some reasons why they shouldn't release it, because it kind of would mess with people's minds a bit to what they're used to. Same thing with Chris Farley's Shrek. It doesn't ruin the original, but it confuses people with what they're used to and what they know the movie to be. And that's why they don't release this stuff in full. And I don't know if Eric Stoltz cares. I don't think he would sue if they released it all. Don't think he gives a shit about it. I think he's moved on entirely from it. He's never stated, "Oh, I'll sue if they release that." He doesn't care. But it's just so... It would be so fascinating to watch Back to the Future with someone who's not Marty, playing Marty, before any of the Michael J. Fox stuff was even filmed. It would be so weird. But in my opinion, guys... it will be released one day, is my opinion. I actually think it will. It will be the most boring thing in the world. It will be so boring to watch. All the lines where you expect something interesting from Michael J. Fox isn't there, because it's a completely different actor. It's a character actor. It's a serious actor. I think people will watch it and just be like, "Oh yeah," and that'll be it. And you'll realize how much of a flop Back to the Future would have been if they didn't make this really ballsy decision to just cut the lead star, which hasn't been done in many movies, successful or unsuccessful. They never do that. So the balls they had with Back to the Future, and also the risk involved. I said earlier in this podcast, the editing of Back to the Future, considering some shots on supporting cast are them actually looking at Eric, and that's in the movie. They're across the room reacting to what Eric's doing, and then it cuts back to Marty, and that's in there heaps of times. It's incredible. You would never guess that they're looking at a completely different actor. It is amazing. The magic of filmmaking is incredible. But yeah, I don't think there's any more Eric Stoltz shots in the film other than his arm punching Biff in the Cafe 80s. It changed the movie for the better, and it made it a far better film, but will this be released, guys? Tell me in the comments. Should it be released? Yeah. Almost completely lost. I've played clips behind me of what there is of Eric Stoltz. But yeah. Oh, to finish this podcast, I want to talk about the VHS cover. Look, I have fond memories of this. I swear, black and blue, that this was Michael J. Fox in a dark studio with just a spotlight on him, like Mr. Bean style VHS. And he's just like looking at the camera like this, wearing the puffer jacket. And it was just this shoot done for, different corporate events or something. They took that photo. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe my memory is false. I was only like 4 years old when I saw this VHS version. All I know is it definitely was one of those ones that they send to the VHS stores to get them approved, because there was a tracker. There was a time code on the bottom of the screen. I remember watching it with time code the first time I saw it. The only memory I have from watching the original Back to the Future when I was a kid is the tracking shot of George McFly's backyard, and the camera like sort of moving into Marty McFly and George walking into the backyard to do the washing, and him convincing him, telling him what he's got to do for the dance. That's all I remember from the very first time I watched Back to the Future. All I can say is this movie is like been the best, and it would screw with my head, a movie that I've seen so many times and is my favorite movie, watching Eric Stoltz play Marty. But we need it to be released. It's lost media. Fuck it, let's just release it. Let's just watch it. I'd love to see it. I will make an update video if it gets released. That would be in a year's time. But yeah, good stuff. I've got more lost media specials. I did it again. No, I did it again. I've got more episodes of the Lost Media podcast coming soon. For those of you who don't know what just happened, I used to do Lost Media specials on my channel, Sam's Movies, in 2016 and 2017. And because I've only just come back to covering Lost Media on YouTube, I've completely got my mind mixed up. I feel like I'm still... Yeah, another aspect I just remembered of Marty McFly and how tough it was for Michael J. Fox filming in this horrible schedule. He would be on the Family Ties set, and he'd go to grab his video camera that he had on set with him. That's a Back to the Future prop when he's filming Doc. He'd go to grab that because he's like completely out of it. He was so out of it that he just thought he was on the Back to the Future set when he was on the Family Ties set. And that's me right now, trying to remember Lost Media podcasts with Lost Media specials and getting them both mixed up. Got more episodes coming. I'm trying to cover the most popular topics possible. This channel needs to grow. It needs to grow. I'm sorry. I want to cover lesser known topics that people really want me to cover eventually. But we'll see. Needs to grow first. Yes. That's it, guys. More episodes coming soon. Goodbye. The end.